Good evening and welcome to our Waltham Public Library program, Tips for Job Hunters with Stefan Kalt. My name is Deborah Hoffman and I organize programs and events for the library. Thanks so much for tuning in. Before we start, I want to let you know how the evening will go. Our speaker will do a 30 to 40-minute presentation and then he'll field questions. There will be a summary available. And to request one, you can email me at dhoffman@minlib.net. And I'll actually put that in the chat. To ask questions via the chat function, use a Google account to sign into YouTube. Feel free to write your questions at any time, and then I'll read them at the end of the presentation. Stefan Kalt is a certified executive coach at Leading Minds Executive Coaching. Over to you, Stefan.
Thank you for that introduction, Deborah. Let me first get this PowerPoint on here. Okay. There we go. Yes, thanks again for that introduction, Deborah. I just want to reiterate what Deborah said, that there will be a summary available, and she described how you can get access to that. I want to say one thing about the scope of this guide. I'm going to be discussing the job hunt. I'm not going to be talking about what goes on before that. In other words, I'm not going to talk about how to put together a resume or a cover letter or things like that. Okay, so it's kind of post-resume to pre-job interview. You get an interview, that's great, and there's a whole technique for dealing with that, but I won't be discussing that, just the in-between spectrum. Okay, so that's what I'll be focusing on today, and please direct your questions to that. I'm not going to be completely ignoring these other things. They'll come up, but that won't be my focus. So let's get into it, okay? Beginner's guide, some tips. I think it's great to start your job search by first opening having an email account dedicated to it. Okay, this is a way to ensure that you can keep information sort of siloed, and you can be on top of incoming. It could be people trying to get in touch with you, maybe set up an interview, whatever it might be. If you're in touch with a person's websites, whatever, try to open up an account that's dedicated to your search. And of course, make job-related folders, etc., on your internet browser. You want a kind of a go-to place. Okay, stay organized. This makes the process much easier and much more efficient. And likewise, even if you haven't got a filing cabinet worked up for this, do it. Okay, you can't beat that. Again, just getting it all in one place, it really maximizes your time and makes focus a heck of a lot easier than otherwise. Okay, and I also think a good thing to do is to have a job search, like an activity log. Okay, this can be a real game changer for people who are having trouble staying organized or focused. These are typical categories you can put in it. This is important. You might have a lot of things going on at once, different possibilities, different irons in the fire. This way, you know kind of where you are in your process. You're speaking to one person about a job possibility, another person, maybe there's a negotiation going on, you've applied, you sent in resumes, et cetera, et cetera. This way you can stay on top of it, know when you did things, with whom, you have contact information, et cetera. Great way to stay organized. And also, I tend to notice it keeps people motivated. Okay, you can add some comments, how things went, if you had an exchange, and sort of notes to self. Okay, and here's a sample of what that might be. Use a spreadsheet, whatever it is for you. You can see company, job title, date, some actions. Try to stay on top of it as best you can. It's not about being perfect, it's about having something. Okay, and a couple of notes as to what happened, contact information, etc. This can be a valuable resource for you, and I encourage people to try it if they haven't, and to continue it if they have started something like this. Okay, now, preparing your resume for the internet. Couple things. Use the most common job title for your target that you can find. And the reason for this is that search engines will be looking for those. And if you use something a little unusual, they might miss it. Okay, so search if you're curious, well, what are these titles? Just search posted job descriptions and resumes for commonly used titles. There are some times where you can't do it, but to the extent that you can find these searchable titles, these names, these words, you're going to be sort of ahead of the game as far as potential employers who might be using search engines to find you. Okay, given the choice, upload whole documents rather than paste sections in. There are still some websites which have you paste in little bits. Sometimes they give you an option. Go for the whole thing. Okay, that way you can ensure the integrity of your documents. Likewise, when you save your resume, give the name that you give it is really part of your message. Okay, so you give it, your give it. If you just say resume, it doesn't say a whole lot. Give it the title. Okay, and likewise in emails, treat an email subject line the same way that you would a save name. Okay, it's kind of part of your message. You're staying on message with the position or the title or the opportunity that you're pursuing. Okay, also will help you when you're going back through emails to figure out which of these various sort of threads. Oh, I see, this is consistent. I've used the same name, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's, I think, going to make your job a lot easier. And save as a PDF rather than the Word file. Okay, it's more difficult for tampering from the standpoint of tampering and readable by both PCs and Macs. Okay, so PDF rather than the Word. I've seen what's happened with Word files, and they've turned into mishmash. PDF retains its data integrity. Okay, folks, beginning your search, job boards. Some popular boards. There are many. I put up a few right here as examples, places you might go. Okay, both to see what it is, what kind of jobs are out there, and in terms of the field, and then also to do a few things, to create a profile and upload your resume. Okay, and sometimes privacy is a concern, identity theft. You can actually post anonymously. I'll give you an example of how that works. You just leave an email address. All right, you can use job alerts. So when you go to these websites, you'll notice that there's information you can give them when you create your profile, and you can set up a mechanism that will alert you to opportunities that resemble the words that you put in to your resume, your title, the job description. There'll be a match, in other words, and it'll say, hey, this job is available, check it out. Go to Indeed to look at it. Okay, so it's nice to have someone else on the job. It's not a replacement for you. You still gotta look for work. Okay, if you're unemployed or if you're employed, you're looking for new opportunities. But this gives you a little bit of an edge. You've got like a robot, so to speak, in parallel with you. Okay, weekly resume updates and word replacement to maintain visibility. What do I mean by this? Well, it's interesting that these search engines, among other things, they tend to privilege documents that are newer and that have been changed, just like websites. If a website hasn't been really updated or no information, there's not been a lot of traffic, then when a person searches it on Google, it is kind of low in the pecking order in terms of when it will come up. It'll be the first page or the second page. Same thing's true with resumes. So if you can go in and make a couple changes, it might just be updating it. Sometimes just making a formal change, it'll populate, in other words, the search engine in a different way than if you just leave it static. So that's a little tip for you, okay? Stay on top of it. Do not post to Craigslist. I do not recommend it. People do this, but it's the jungle out there. There's just aren't the kind of securities that you can expect on some of the better jobs boards. And I think Indeed and Simply Hired are examples of those. Okay, and here's an example of a resume. This person has decided to post anonymously. They've got their email address, ABC. They chose to use a phone number. You don't have to do that. Greater Boston area, but they kind of left it like that. Person looks in here and says, contacts, and then more information can be exchanged. Okay, this is one way that you can do this. Also, some people might want to post and don't want, for example, their current employer to know right away. In other words, they want to retain some kind of control over their information. And this is another way to do that. It's not going to be completely sealed off because you can see there's a work history there, but nevertheless, it does give the person some privacy. Okay, here's Indeed. For those of you who haven't actually looked at a job board or it's been a while, this is how they will typically appear. And then there'll be a job posting such as that, and you can save it, tells you how long it's been posted and information, etc. Okay. That's one strategy. It's can be effective if it has some disadvantages, and I'll get into those. Especially when you compare it to the next stage of this, which is to go to company websites directly. Okay, so visit, for example, the HR jobs page looking for current openings. By the way, if you do post and you don't get an acknowledgement, just make sure that your resume was received, send them a message. There can be a little snafu with these from time to time. But I highly recommend going directly to company websites, the kinds of places that interest you. Okay, because companies typically look at their own resume databanks before checking jobs boards. Not everybody does this. Now, there's no one-size-fits-all formula, but this seems to be the case based on some studies that have been done. And the companies will regard people who upload resumes to them somehow more seriously, and guess what? Working with them than people who just post anonymously or post to a jobs board. Companies will check those out too. So I'm not saying that's total zero strategy, but this is a bit more of a lean in. So I urge you to try this too. Some of you probably do this. Keep doing it. Consider it. Again, example of a board, Honda. You may have no desire to go work for Honda, but I think this is a pretty good example of a page. Here you go. This is national. I know some of you may be listening in from outside Boston. I can't say. And this is a page that speaks to opportunities that, as I say, are across the country. And it kind of works like Indeed or any of those other jobs boards too, posting, putting up a resume, et cetera, and getting into conversation with people that way. Okay. Another thing to do is to consider staffing agencies. A lot of people don't consider this, but you might think about it. Sign up with 2 or 3. Again, this is about getting people in your corner. You've got job alerts going on with Indeed, for example, or Monster or those other places. You're checking out companies, seeing what their websites have to offer. And you might have signed up with a couple of staffing agencies. These are people who will be looking for jobs for you. And it might just be temporary work. I'll say something about that, okay? They have an interview process. It's like an easygoing interview. Think of it as like sort of softball for a job interview. And it's a little bit of practice and some free coaching, et cetera. Like you could do better. Because you see, if you get a job through them, they get money. So they are motivated to work for you. Okay, it's a reliable motive there. They're going to try to help you out as best they can. Not all are created equal, but you could interview a couple of them, see which feels right for you. Okay, temp jobs open up opportunities, especially if they're related to the kind of full-time work you're going to do. And like it says right there, can become permanent. Okay, so there's some transition possibilities as well. Here are examples of staffing agencies in the Boston area on the left. Okay, and then also some national staffing agencies as well for anyone who's out of town. Okay, and here's a typical interface with those agencies of contemporaries. This is the one that I picked. Go there, meet the information. You say, hey, I think I'll go ahead with this. Job seekers on the left, and employers will be using them too. Okay, so they also contact the agencies contacting them. There's a lot of go around, and you're getting in the mix this way. You're increasing your opportunities. Okay. Lastly, here are government employment services. Try these as well. As I say, just kind of expand the cocktail. Information resource centers, free in most cases. Sometimes there'll be a little charge for an extra special service, but basically you get listings, directories, so say free for unemployed folks, and usually even people who are employed. Workshops, okay, social media opportunities there. And many companies will contact these agencies looking for folks who could be working for them, okay? And in some cases, you might even get a personal reference. If you've worked, for example, with a career counselor who is there and they have a sense of your character, I've noticed, it's been reported to me that a number of folks have offered to sort of vouch for potential employees who come to them and work with them over a period of time. Okay, they've become a known quantity. All right. Also invited guest speakers, et cetera, experts, people who can share their knowledge and their experience as well. And here's an example, okay, in the Massachusetts area. I just want to mention some of these have closed temporarily, some are open. See, in the COVID situation, some of them didn't get online as fast as others. So you'll have to be kind of a case-by-case basis. But again, it's another resource. Give it a shot, see how it works for you, okay? So this little review, I talked about dedicated email account, job search folders, okay? The job search activity log, preparing your resume for the internet, and then using jobs boards, company websites, staffing agencies, and then in government employment services. It's not exhaustive, but these are four, sort of think of them as tools that you can use to kind of up your game, okay? So moving on, social media. All right, I'm gonna say a little bit about Facebook and more about LinkedIn. All right, folks. So, you know, Facebook, of course, a great place to connect with people, primarily socially, but sometimes there can be a professional overlay, even though that's not its intended, really intended purpose. At least it's not initially, but things have changed. Okay, many companies have Facebook pages and they post jobs there. So avail yourself of this. They can sometimes people who are dedicated to monitoring their page, and you can ask questions and get into conversations that way. You know, I should emphasize this too. Getting into conversations with people is key. Starting those conversations, rather than just sending information back in form of resumes, but actually interacting. It turns you from someone who's not known to someone who's increasingly known better and better. And when someone can put a face, literally, ultimately, if it turns out you have a Zoom conversation with someone, et cetera, to a resume, that kind of ups the chances that a hiring process could go forward, okay? Because it builds trust. So firms may advertise job availability in an informal way, that's something that you can also avail yourself of. A couple of things about Facebook. It's often used by recruiters not as a primary place to find potential employees, et cetera, but as a way of figuring out what people are sort of up to, okay? And you want to clean up your profile, okay? You know, the hiring process can take a long time. Hires, they want to make sure that the folks they're getting are trustworthy and it's not going to lead to any kind of snafus down the road somehow. So, and some stuff that you got up there that could be a little, it's not no big deal. Just scrub it off. You know, if any pictures of you at a party or something where you've gone a little too, just keep it clean. Okay. So Google search yourself to find out what comes up. Probably nothing, but you never know. It might be some strange photograph that you didn't intend to put up there, or you did, you forgot, so you take it down. Okay, this is really your Facebook mantra, just least offense, etc. Try to keep it kind of, you know, a modest presence there, especially if you're in the job search mode, okay? Because recruiters will check it out, especially as the process, the hiring process progresses. They want to know a bit more about you, and this is one way they'll figure it out. Okay, but especially, I said companies have a Facebook page. You can go and like them, and kind of get on their radar screen, and get into conversation, comment, etc. Okay, there are various groups and communities. Join some that are relevant to your search, and you can contribute. Okay, again, upping your visibility. That's really a key thing here. All right. Last word here, just keep things positive. I've seen situations where conversations have turned into debates and things got a little nasty. You know, people might feel offended. There can be some sensitivity. I just stay out of those debates and stay focused on what it is that you're trying to pursue. And Facebook, as I said, can be a resource for you as well. Okay, and this is an example. I couldn't figure out if they're for people who are investing in Florida real estate and they live there. But the thing is that a group like this, you join, let's say you're into investment, maybe you're someone who's a property manager. Opportunities, they percolate, you know, or they bubble up. Conversation is a great starting place to learn more about these kinds of things. Okay, so join such a group and see what happens, make it work for you. Now, LinkedIn. Hey, LinkedIn right now is really a kind of a #1 platform for recruiters, and has been for some time, but given where we all are with COVID and with remote employment, et cetera, it's become even more important for you to familiarize yourself with this tool. Okay, so I'm going to say a few things about it. I can't get in too depth. I'm not a LinkedIn expert. There are people who literally devote their lives to this You can find them online, and they can sort of divulge all the secrets of LinkedIn. But I'm going to talk about a few things that I think are important because of the significance of this for recruitment and for just people looking around to see, gee, you know, who could I get in touch with to help me advance my job search? And as I say, at the other end, people looking for potential employees and so on. So here we are. This statistic has gone up. Actually, I think it's even higher. Okay, but a lot of verification of candidates. If you have a profile, some people don't, and I urge you to start one. Okay, and it really functions kind of like an online resume. If you're not familiar with this, it's like a resume plus. Okay, there's some differences, but you can think of it that way. Okay, so gear your LinkedIn profile to the kind of job you're seeking is the main thing here. Okay, you can only have one, so try to make sure that it fits and that it's going to be serviceable to you. It can also function as a search engine, like I'm saying, for finding people who can help you get a job. Okay, so if you want to learn about the field, you can get in touch with folks who are already in it. If you know that there are some people working for a particular company, you might be able to get in touch with them to learn about the culture there. It can be very useful there. So like I said, if you don't have an account, create one, it's free. Okay, there is a premium account, but you can just kind of get on board this way and learn about its features. Okay, include your dedicated email address. That's optional. I talked about the email. I wouldn't include your physical address and phone number. It's not necessary, probably not at this point. Some people do, that's fine. Some people have created a dedicated phone line for the job search. That might seem to be, for you, to be a little bit sort of beyond the pale or beyond what's necessary. But if someone wants to contact you, I'll get into that in a minute, how that's possible. They can get you here. Okay, you get it when you have a profile set up. Okay, make it public. You have an option. You can keep it private if you want. Some people do this. Okay, but if you want people to find you, then you've got to be public. And the reason why some people keep it private is because they have some groups. They just want to talk to a certain number of individuals about whatever it might be, and they don't want people interfering with that or constantly banging on the door. Okay, but in any case, make yours public, and that way you will be visible to potential employers. Okay, connect with people you know or work with in the past, and then I'll say a little more about this. Join special interest groups that are relevant to your area of work. Okay, these are some of the categories that constitute a profile. I'm not going to talk about all of them. Okay, but I'll talk about these a little bit. All right, as I said, LinkedIn is so important. I just want to spend some time on it. If you have a headshot, meaning a pic of your face, you get more clicks. Meaning that people will take a look at sort of what's under the hood. They're going to look at your qualifications, your history, more often than if you don't have a headshot. LinkedIn has done studies on this, and the data is incontrovertible. So get a picture. Try to look as professional as you can. I realize that right now, talk about having a professional take it. Maybe not. Maybe with COVID, you don't want to get into a studio with anybody. That's fine. So just take a picture of yourself, but try to make it look as good as you can. Okay. Headline character limits are this: the headshot and there's the headline. I'll say what that is in a minute. It's basically what your job description is. I say keep it short and to the point, and use words that capture your services or skills. So here's an example. Okay, this person with you see his headshot. You can put some pictures in the background if you want. It's up to you, and where this person is, etc. Okay. In addition to the headline, and in addition to the headshot, you can talk about yourself. And it's called the about or summary section. And there you can see it's limited to a certain number of words, general terms, include some keywords, and list some of your most important accomplishments. And here's an example of how that might look. Okay, just put some sort of flesh on these bones. There's a sample. All right, and as far as the experience, I was talking about how it's kind of like a resume. Well, below the about are sort of your work history, experience, etc. Talking about when you've worked where, for how long, so forth. This is something that employers will take a look at, and so you'll want to be as detailed and as accurate as you can be. All right, now people say, well, what headline should I use if I'm currently unemployed? Okay, one approach is conventional, just in your headline, describe your professional area, job title, etc. Okay, and here we go. The about section, what you're seeking, highlighting qualifying skills, and then in the experience section, which I just showed you, since you will lack a current position, it'll just detail your work history. Sometimes that'll work. Okay, there are a couple problems with that. I'll get to them in a second. And here's an example: someone seeking opportunities, talented social media person, etc., etc. Okay. Nice picture, something going on in the background that might be related. It's kind of like the art that she's doing. So she's displaying it right there. It's kind of smart. One thing about this I don't think is so great though. Talented. Everybody's talented. You understand me? My suggestion is not to use buzzwords like this. You're a social media marketer. Of course, you're an excellent one. Okay, so I wouldn't go there. People can fill their resumes and their profiles with this kind of piffle, and I think it distracts. Stick to what you've done, to your accomplishments, and to skills that you're going to be bringing to the job itself. Here's another example: seeking exciting job opportunities. That's great, probably a decent fellow, but nothing's really stated here. What kind of jobs? What is it that he wants to do? So I want that headline right here as a way to transmit to others. Okay, what it is you're looking for. So again, wouldn't go there. Okay. So there's a problem, however, with this approach. You can use it. LinkedIn search algorithms privilege those who have a current position over those who don't. What do I mean by privilege? I mean, when an employer goes in and types in the kind of skills or the kind of job description they're looking for, if you don't have a current position, the chance that you're going to come up in the search is less. Second thing is they don't typically enter actively seeking employment into the search engine. Some do, but it's not as common. They enter job titles and skills. So what to do? Folks, there's no universal guaranteed solution to this. So you kind of got to use your imagination a bit. I have two proposals, just two here, and you might have thoughts of your own here. Okay, one option is in your headline, just include the kind of job that you're seeking. All right, let me just move this here, whatever it might be, and indicate you're looking for employment. And then in the experience section, list your current job, say as a freelancer or a consultant doing something related to your headline. For example, like I say, if your headline is that you're an HR specialist, current job might be a freelance resume specialist, career coach, and I'd put etc. Okay, that's one way that people handle it. I see it and it seems to work. So avail yourself of that if it seems useful to you. Another way to do it is, as before, include what it is if you want to do in your headline. In the experience section, add your headline as your current job. Okay, and the box for company, when you put it together, just put seeking new opportunity, immediate start. Some of you might be sitting and saying, wait a minute, I'm lost. This is all very confusing. I can barely get the basics of LinkedIn, and now you're throwing all this stuff at me. I'm going to be offering that summary for those of you who are swimming a little bit in the water, and it will detail this. This is a very useful strategy, okay? But I want to just put it on the table and go through it once, okay? So I'll show you what it looks like when it all comes out in the end anyway. Okay, in the description box, you'll describe not what you're currently doing, but what you're capable of doing. Okay, and then put an abbreviated version of the above in your about section. That's all a lot of baloney for people who don't know the category, and I understand that. That's what it looks like in the end, okay? So that your history's got your job, sales director, and you're currently seeking new opportunity, immediate start, and you're able to do all these things. So highlights what you can do. Why do this in the first place? Because you now have a position. You see, so when folks are going to be looking, I mean, potential employers for you, you're going to pop up. You're not lying. You can see right here that you're looking for new opportunities, okay? And you've been doing it so from whenever October to the present, okay? But this puts you on the radar screen for such folks, and it'll clue them into what you have to offer, okay? So a second strategy, say none are perfect. So there's some workarounds. You can consider this second one if you want. Skills section, folks, in LinkedIn, adding skills to your profile increases visibility, and various search engines will recognize this, okay? You can add to 50 of these, but I don't recommend it. Keep them, I'd say, to, I don't know, between maybe 8 and 12, okay? And the reason is that fewer skills will mean more endorsements for each skill, and that increases your discoverability when employers are looking for you. Okay, here's an example of the skills, etc. You don't have to have 99. If you had 75 people will say, oh, I love that skill, and they're gonna basically kind of vote you up. Okay, it's a little mysterious the way I'm talking about it, But when you get into the process of learning about more about LinkedIn, this is something that I think will be fairly intuitively accessible. Okay. The really important thing are these recommendations, though, and I suggest you get a couple. So when someone goes to your profile, there can actually be paragraphs from folks that you know. Maybe you've worked for them. Okay. Maybe they've worked for you, saying how fantastic employee you were, or what your accomplishments were, or what you can do to help, et cetera, et cetera. And those people are traceable because they're also on LinkedIn. So it's not like, just some unknown person said something. Okay, they're kind of putting their neck out for you, and this can be very valuable. Okay, so they also up the discoverability of your profile. They have more weight and skill endorsements, and you can get them by giving them in some cases. Okay, so can think of some folks that you could help out with a recommendation. They may return the favor. Okay, and LinkedIn makes this possible. And here's an example of one. Okay, so this person has 9, they've given 8. This can be really good. It can help you out. It sort of makes you real. Okay, get a couple going if you can before you start your job search or during the process. Okay, you may have some. Try to kind of collect these and increase these to the extent that you can. Okay, last thing here is just degrees of connection, folks. This is important, and I'll tell you why. In LinkedIn, you're connected to a number of people, some directly and some indirectly. Some directly and some indirectly. Okay, and this person's called a first. You're directly, that's a connection of yours. Okay, you've accepted an invitation, and or they've accepted your invitation, and now you're connections. Okay, this person's second. What does that mean? Okay, what this means, this person is known to your connections, but they're not a connection of yours. But they can facilitate an introduction. Okay, there's one other way you can meet someone who's not your connection. You can buy access in mail. Okay, you can look into this a little bit. If you have a premium paid membership, you don't have to be the connection of the person that you want to contact, but it does cost a little bit of money. Okay, third, you can't request an introduction, but you can use this email feature that I just talked about. And some people you can't contact at all. They're out of network. They've decided in some cases to be off the radar screen, literally. So they don't want anyone contacting them. They may be in a small group of people who talk to each other, but as, like I said earlier, just don't want anyone else to be part of their circle. So you can't get in touch with them. Okay, and look, find connections, use the search function. I'd say have about 50 of these connections before you start your job hunting. It's a bit strange if someone looks at your profile and you only got like 3 connections, okay? So be mindful of that. And then peruse company profiles for listings, folks. And these are some of the jobs that are also available on LinkedIn. It's like a jobs board too. You can search for jobs. Here someone will come up. All right, and I recommend that you also join LinkedIn groups. This is the last part of this, because you can connect with people in these groups. They're kind of like Facebook groups, and they don't have to be your connections. So you can start conversations with them, in other words, leading to potential employment. This is the big plus here. Okay, they're members only, so you want to ultimately kind of knock on the door. You'll ask to join. They might vet you a little bit just to see kind of where you're coming from, and then let you in. And like I said, once you belong to the group, you have access to the list of members and can talk to them without requesting a connection. So this kind of amplifies your circle, really expands it. All right, lots of folks you don't know, you might get to know this way. And there is a limit. You can send 15 one-on-one messages. Okay, it means that you start the message, and if you continue the conversation, you're not breaking your limit there. But if you start a new conversation, then you've gone 15 down to 14, and at the end of the month, it pops up again. Okay. These are some of the groups that are available, like I was just talking, LinkedIn. And here's an example, request to join, and boom. Okay, you might have to wait a little bit. You'll get a message, the person will say, we're happy to, that you joined our group, or you might not hear from them. Maybe they've decided they don't want you. Maybe no one's minding the till here. Just, for some reason, the group is no longer it's not very active. So it may have nothing to do with you. Okay, and finally, as far as getting noticed, folks with LinkedIn, share information. You can post, read people's stuff and comment on it. You might identify some sources. If you're in, say, the financial world, Bloomberg Business Review, comment, be active, show that you're sort of, in the flow. Okay, and by curating the work of other people's, you get some credit for being in the know and aware of what's happening. And it also increases your discoverability for potential employers because your profile is active. All right. So once again, Facebook, talked about kind of scrubbing it clean, visiting company pages and joining communities. The LinkedIn, I went through some of the profile features, how to present yourself if you're currently unemployed. Okay, talked about the degrees of connection. You know, some folks directly connected, others indirectly, but you can get to those people too. How to connect a little bit. And then there's also job opportunities for LinkedIn, functions like a jobs board as any other. Okay, the main thing here is to leverage those connections to turn them into conversations by joining and using groups and then getting noticed. How again? By posting, by commenting on what shows up, gets your head out there. Okay. Last part of this concerns networking. Okay, and in a way, we're already there. I mean, networking, I've been discussing it in the context of LinkedIn, but I want to say a few more things. There's the informational interview you've heard of. Okay, perhaps it's an effective way to get access to what is often called the hidden job market. Okay, just by contacting people to have a conversation, setting up a sort of a discussion with them or interview or ask them questions. Okay, you can contact such people. You can use LinkedIn, message, InMail, like I talked about. These are just options. And you're looking for opportunities. You want to know more about what they do. This is the reasons why you would do this and why you would express this. And we'd be grateful for any advice. And I'm surprised. Yeah, some people don't respond. Others are happy to talk about what they're doing. You know, they just love to talk about it, especially if they love what they're doing. They love to talk about it with you. You might say, well, yeah, but what about all the other people that are contacting? Not a lot of people do this. Yeah, stand out from the crowd, you know, stand up, in other words, and try this. You'd be surprised, okay? They're willing to talk to you, you know, either by phone or ultimately by Zoom even. Some people would be happy to do this. In the old days, it feels like the old days, you might meet for coffee if they're in your city. This might happen again, right? But let's just say for now, we're talking online. This is how it would be, okay? Discuss their job and maybe give you a hand, okay? Increase your visibility, gets you out of your head. Nothing gets a person out of his or her head than talking to someone, I've noticed, about something real, like you know, the field, for example. I think this can be very beneficial, okay? Less stressful than a job interview, and you can get some advice, some positive feedback about where you're going. And you learn about job opportunities that aren't being advertised in many cases, things that are being cooked up, possibilities. You kind of get on the front of that line. You get tips, suggestions. Some people will spontaneously send your resume to HR. It happens, you know. Even hire people right out of the box in those cases. It's rare, but it happens. Okay, and they know, or think they know, and trust you a little bit more because they think they know you. They've got some information from you firsthand. Okay, a couple tips, folks, and this will be included in a summary. Just don't use these as a way of getting a job right off the bat. Okay, you're getting information. Prepare some questions. Folks take notes. You can ask a question at the end. Hey, you know, maybe get some advice if they can help. If not, they might be able to connect you with someone else. Okay, if you have a business card and it happens to be face-to-face meeting, if you're going to do that, if you want to risk it, you know, it's your call. Leave it there. Okay, sample questions are like that. Just put them out there. Again, this will be in a summary. Okay, this is the sort of conversation. You don't have to ask all these questions, but these are ways to start a conversation. Okay, and you know, you might be asking, well, how do I find the people that I'm looking for in the first place? Of course, you can use Google, search company websites, and these are also informational websites that you can use. Okay, Hoover's Vault, Zoom, Info, Glassdoor. Here's an example of Glassdoor. HubSpot, let's say you want to know about HubSpot. Check it out. Oh, wow, okay. So all these jobs, what's the salaries, what's going on at HubSpot, and people will even review the company, give you a sense of what the salaries averages are and what they thought of the place. Pros and cons. It's a nice way to learn a little bit about a company when you can't speak to people directly about it. Folks, kind of bringing this to a conclusion, networking, Rotarians, these are sort of old style, you know, ways of being active in civics groups, but they're still alive. And just remember that, yeah, when you go to church, you may not be stock jobbing there, but you might hear things. You know, if you are active in any of these manners, could be a hobby group. You know, stay connected. Really, my point. Support group, but also, you know, there's sometimes a rumor mill. You might learn something about an opportunity. So I just put that out there. Okay, virtual jobs fairs, volunteering, conferences, they're now virtual jobs fairs. Remember the old jobs fairs used to look like that? Okay, also I suggest volunteering. You can often get access to internal job possibilities there. All right, it's about done here. conferences and workshops. And here we are, okay, in the COVID days, virtual jobs fair. What it would look like. Meet the representatives there, typical, breakout rooms, etc. And these are some of the companies that would be advertising there. Check it out. Okay. Also, professional alumni associations, get access to membership databases and newsletters. And there's often networking activities that are promoted there. All right. Professional associations also look good on your resume, and you can have opportunities to work there as well. Want some, say, leadership or supports experience. Here is a professional group. Okay, nurses supporting nurses, helping them find jobs. There we go. And I went to BU, so there's the alumni page there. And hey, what do you know? Some kind of a Zoom lunch or brunch. Okay, last thing with networking is family and friends. I'm amazed at people who don't take advantage of this. One thing with family, though, explain to them what you're doing. You often assume that the family and friends know what you're doing. That's not often the case. Be a bit more detailed about that. Okay, let them know what it is that if you think they can be of assistance to you, if they know someone. Okay, sit them down. In other words, if you feel comfortable with with your family supporting you in this way, okay, maybe more motivated to help you than a lot of other people. All right, if they can help, just give them the information they need. Okay, so look, I just want to review this: informational interviews, find the right people and companies, the community groups, virtual job fairs, volunteering. Volunteering is a great way to kind of get a foot in the door. And then again, a volunteer job could turn into maybe not that job, but it might lead to something more permanent. And then conferences, okay, conferencing. And then professional alumni associations. And finally, family and friends, a much looked resource. I was just working with someone, he's looking to be a coder. His brother happens to own a data network company. He never even considered talking to his brother about possible employment avenues. It's like there was a mental block there, so break through, okay? Talk to your friends, okay? So folks, final thoughts, COVID-19, it's on people's heads. If you're currently working, update your resume, okay? There's a lot of employment volatility and some uncertainty. So you might find you're looking for work and it's not your fault, companies know that there are good people out there who don't have a job because of what's happening, okay? So it takes a lot longer. It can be 5 to 10 times the number of jobs, pitches that you might have to pull. All right, this is one spread number here, but definitely more than pre-COVID-19 times. And finally, keep in mind that, as I said, people understand, a lot of talented, experienced folks out there out of work for no fault of their own, and the stigma, I think, is a little less. All right, a lot of people looking for work, and a lot of good people, a lot of experienced, qualified people, and even beginners too. All sorts of positions are actually opening up in the healthcare. Not surprised to hear about that, tech, etc. Okay, so guys, I wouldn't approach a dream job first. Keep that a little bit later down the line. Start with something that's a little bit, more close to home. Perhaps not the reach position. Grow your network, and those conversations, face-to-face, Zoom, phone, text, email. That's what you want to do to get into conversations with people who have the power or influence over those who have the power to hire you. So that's it. I don't know if I made it quite under the whatever it was, the 40 minutes or so, but this is some contact information for me if you want to get in touch with me. Okay, we could talk a little bit if you would like. I'm open to that. It's been a pleasure sharing, and I'm open to any questions that people have based on what I presented here or other. Anything that's occurred to you. Thank you.
That was great. That was great, Stefan. I certainly learned a lot. And I thought it was a very comprehensive overview of what all the things that you need to be thinking about.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
It's slightly outside the range of what you've been talking about, but definitely related. Can you talk about applying for jobs that you are either over or underqualified for, and how important it is to apply to only those where you feel like you're well matched?
Great question. My feeling is that you should apply for jobs if you see that there's a match. If it's not perfect, don't worry about that too much. And the reason is that many job postings first of all, they're the results of a committee, meaning that there are a number of qualities that people want, okay, at the other end, your potential employer. Some have made it on to the post, some have not, in fact, and some of what's there, people will be happy if you had them, but actually they'd be happy if you had a whole bunch of other skills that you could bring to that as well. And so I guess the long and the short of it is, don't let that put you off, okay? If there's not a perfect match, you should take a chance, all right? And if you're overqualified, I wouldn't worry about that. Let the burden on someone else is to decide, in other words, if they're going to reach out to you. Don't cut yourself off at the feet or at the ankles there, okay? So that's my feeling about that. And in terms of underqualification as well, you know, the thinking really applies. It's really very similar. Give yourself that chance really to make a play for a job possibility. It might just be that you've got some experience that no one could have imagined would have been pertinent, but the way you present yourself and the way you talk about your own job path, it suddenly makes a connection and you're on board. So give it a shot. Okay.
So if the job looks interesting, go for it.
Yeah, I'd say that absolutely go for it. Yes.
Okay. And how should an applicant handle requesting a reference from a current employer? Is there a risk involved in sort of outing yourself, especially if you don't get the job?
Yeah, there is a risk, you know, I even deny it. I think that in a situation like this, much has to do with your standing in your current place of employment. To just look at the spectrum of possibilities. Of course, if you're looking for employment, and some people may know this, then it's not going to be as big an issue. What about if you're looking for employment and you don't want your current employer to know? Okay, right. This is the big challenge here. All right, and that will come down to the relationship that you have with your current employer and certain assumptions there. There are cases where I think you can just be very straight up and say that's not possible. Okay, but you might be able to give alternative references. So suggest you can give some alternatives, people who might be able to speak to your work history in the past. Okay, but going to your boss who currently really wants you on that project, but you have to leave the company for whatever reasons, probably isn't going to work.
Got it.
And it could blow up in your face. So yeah, definitely don't want to do that.
Okay. All right. I have a thank you here for you. Someone who enjoyed the presentation.
Great.
And I think that's it for questions.
Okay, awesome.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and thank you for a great presentation.
I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said earlier, if anyone wants to get in touch with me after this, feel free to do so.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Right. Thank you so much. I'm going to end this live stream.
All right. Thank you, Deborah.
Okay.